Day 7, He loved me and gave Himself up for me. Yesterday we followed the Passion of Christ, and the main point that we emphasized there is to look at the love of God and Jesus for us. And the dying on the cross is an expression of God's love for us, a wiping clean the slate of our sins, and therefore we relish that love of God. And I said any change that we expect to bring about in our behavior has to come first from filling ourselves with the love of God. I am so filled with God's love that now I am ready to bring about a change in my life. As written there in the sheet, I am inspired to change with help from above. The subtitle of today's topic. And the grace that we are seeking is to be in communion with Jesus. I seek to change. It is not a change that comes about because my mother is telling me, or my father, or my sister, or my work colleague is telling me I need to change. It's not a change sometimes even my mind tells me. It's a change that I seek to bring about in communion with Jesus. And therefore, the hymn that we began with, no one can give to me that peace which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. We are an Easter people. We are celebrating that God died and now has rose again for all eternity. And therefore the peace that every human being seeks is not found in material things, is not found in name and fame, but found in a relationship with God. When I look around and see all the things that trouble me, and I seem to lose my peace in a world that's not at ease, no one can give to me that peace which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. Says my risen Christ to me, this the peace I give to thee, not the peace the world doth give. The world promises all temporary peace, temporary pleasure, temporary enjoyment, but the peace that makes one free. We are filled with God's love. We begin to change, and in that love, we also reach out and share that love to others as we begin to change. This song was written by Father Dougie Rowe, a Jesuit of the Bombay province. Now the question that comes then is, how do we begin to change? What do we do to bring about that change? I have already explained in an earlier session these three beautiful stories about Wayne from California, Raj from India, as well as Huang from China. All these are there in chapter 4 of my book, Uncertain Times, Wellness Strategies from Neuroscience and Ignatius. And so I won't repeat that in this talk, but we know all three of them had some addiction. Wayne was substance addiction, drugs, alcohol, etc. Raj was the addiction to the phone, WhatsApp, social media continuously. And Juan was addiction to video games, playing 12 hours a day. And so we spoke about the two different types of addiction, substance addiction and non-substance addiction. And in non-substance addiction, even we have food addiction. The brain has a tendency to become addicted to certain things that we like. And the addictive potential of the brain comes from the release of the feel-good chemicals that are released in the brain when we have or do something that we like. So whether it's a cigarette or a drug or looking at the telephone and social media, the feel-good chemicals are released, serotonin, dopamine, etc. And then the brain thirsts for those chemicals again and again. And therefore that leads into a cycle of addiction. And therefore it is so easy to get addicted. Maybe not to one thing, but to something else. Each of us is different and each of us has a different addictive potential. Good question. How can we as religious be addicted to various things? So very often it might be that, a lot of people, religious and others as well, know that drugs are bad. So right from this thing, you sort of ingrain that I'm not going to have drugs, okay? And then, okay, alcohol is a social thing, so maybe I'll have alcohol. Okay, so that is one possibility. But even moving beyond substance to a non-substance, we become addicted to in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, maybe the fame that comes from doing jobs successfully, okay? Or sometimes an addiction. And in a sense, this has to be nuanced because many of these things are good. Remember, when we talk of addiction, we are not in talking of bad things. There are a lot of good things that one could be addicted to, and that could be name, fame. Okay, so yes, I've been successful here in one school, I go to another school and I'm success, and then that creates a pattern of addiction. And again, as I said, it's very nuanced. It's good because we need to have certain amount of good addictions. And a good addiction could be exercise. As we know, exercise is necessary. And initially, there is a resistance to exercise. But once people get into the feel-good nature of exercise and see, oh, it's doing so much good, exercise also can become an addiction. And we have so many cases of people now who are so addicted, not 2 hours a day in the gym, but 3 hours and 4 hours, or 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, because they need that serotonin, dopamine kick, and they are getting it from exercise. So addiction can be understood as anything, good or bad, we don't know. But when it's taken to the end of the spectrum, then it becomes bad. So as we understand the golden rule, everything in moderation, and then you're on a good path. But if it goes to one extreme or the other, then that addictive potential, it can lead to harm, even if it's a good addiction. But I do tell my students, do exercise. Let that become a good addiction for you. A good addiction could be doing your homework regularly on a regular basis, not leaving it for the last minute. Okay, burning the midnight oil one day before the exam. Do your homework regularly, and then that can become a good addiction. So there's a lot of potential for addiction because the brain naturally thrives on the feel-good chemicals. So we have about 6 steps of how to go about. Obviously, there are other steps to bring about behavior change. Okay. And now we are not only talking about addictive behavior, but even some behaviors that may not be addictive, but we would like to change them. So the first step is willpower. As you can see from the slide, it forces us to get up in the morning, prevents you from punching people whom you hate, stops you from eating yummy food 24/7, and makes you do work. Oh, okay. So that's willpower. And willpower is needed in our quest to bring about certain behavior changes in our lives. And as we know, every retreat that we do is in that direction. Can I remove this? Can I become a better person? Can I be a more worthy vessel for God to use me to the best of my abilities? Willpower is necessary, but willpower only goes so much of the way. So if you imagine a graph, okay, on the y-axis, left axis, willpower is like this. It rises, 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 and after some time it plateaus out. So willpower is helpful in the beginning, but we cannot hope to bring about any behavior change in the long term if we rely only on our willpower. Because all of us know, have you heard of New Year's resolutions? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then the resolutions go down the drain. And we've known in our past also, when we've tried to do things with willpower, yes, initially there was that enthusiasm. Okay, and after that it fades because of so many natural circumstances. So willpower, necessary, but don't expect to bring about behavior change only with the help of willpower. Second, mind map your vision. A lot of mind maps we are talking about these days. What it involves is, what is the behavior that I want to change? Okay, then keep it at the like a center point. This is what I want to change. For example, it could be that okay, I want to control my overeating. Okay, and I'm giving this example from my own personal life. So control my overeating. And then what are the steps that would help that? Okay, so definitely before, and Ignatius, remember Ignatius has this in his writings. He's saying, with regard to food also, make sure you decide after you have had a good meal, what is going to be the portion sizes in your plate. He was very wise, because when we come to the table, if you are hungry and going to say, okay, let me decide now, you will fill your plate more than necessary. So Ignatius said, after a good meal, write down how much is it that I want to eat. Okay, so that would be creating a mind map, putting steps. Any long-term change requires a long-term goal and short-term goals. So for eating, the long-term goals could be, I want to give up sugar and carbs, okay, or all the donuts and the pastries and all, because they don't really provide nutrition. They just release a lot of the feel-good chemicals, and therefore when you start with one pastry, you cannot go on to only one pastry. Have you ever tried eating one cashew nut? So, therefore, we've put now, I want to stop my overeating. I look at my portion size at a breakfast, lunch, dinner. I decide the number of meals. And I decide, am I going to then also not snack in between meals? Okay, so there's a word for that. It's called grazing. Okay, there's some food. Pick it up along the way. You've not thought of it. Okay. Okay. So, we keep trying to put various things around that. So I'm talking about deciding portion size. I'm talking about when am I going to eat. And one very important thing is we've spoken of focus, to focus only on the meal. So often when growing up, I remember we were around the table sometimes, and even though my dad and mom would insist, we would have our study book there. Okay, in those days we didn't have phones, okay, but still the study book, the TV was on, family conversation going on, multiple things, and then we tend to eat more. Okay, and today it is, the phone is going on, some music is playing, the TV is on, family is talking, and so there's so much of distraction, and then the body does not register that food is going in. Whereas I've noticed during a retreat, when I'm just focusing on the food, I eat much less. So the more you concentrate on your eating and relish each morsel, even before you begin, look at the color of the food, look at the way it's been prepared, inhale the fragrances, the smells of the food. All that helps us to reduce the actual eating and send the message to the brain quicker that, hey, you're full. And the more you're able to spread out that eating time, okay, that's when we are able to eat less. But of course, today's our fast food culture, today's instant, we have lunch on the go. We are doing multiple things because we want to get as much, but it has an effect on the body in the long run. Okay, and maybe one could think of joining Overeaters Anonymous or something if there is really a problem, because the 12th step is very helpful. It does not remove just the addiction. It also helps to remove what are the factors behind. So on this mind map, you might write, what is it that's making me eat food? Okay, for example, I would eat food when I was happy. I would eat food when I'm sad. I would eat food when I was depressed. Everything was a time to go and snack. Especially if I want to get a lot of work done in the night, I know I'm going to fall asleep, so keep a lot of snacks around you. Okay, so that's all these extra foods that come. So very often, eating extra food is always some emotion. So we are trying to then the drug of choice becomes food for my various emotions. Sadness, loneliness, everything. I'm not taking drugs. I'm not taking any of those big medicines, but I'm eating food. I am feeding my emotions with the food. So this is how you would build up your mind map, looking at the causes, looking at how you can work to change that. This is another description of a mind map. Each one can put it in. And this then mind map should be kept somewhere in your on the mirror on your phone, so you can see how every day you get reminded. Step 3, repeatedly place the thought in your mind. Here again, thanks to good old Saint Ignatius, what is his instruction to us? Before going to bed, ask for the grace that you want to get the next morning. Ask for the grace that you want to receive the next day. And so in the same way, we could put down before going to bed, this is what I want to do. And then say a Hail Mary, say 3 Hail Marys. As soon as you get up in the morning, what is the change that I want to bring about? Ask for that grace and again say Hail Mary. And so during the day, you're constantly thinking of the change that you want to bring about, and you're repeatedly placing the thought in your mind. Put post-it notes around your bathroom or your desk, etc. And then also maybe on your phone that this is what I want to do. These are the steps. So your constant reminders that this is what I want to achieve. Remember, we spoke about the difference between attention and intention. So what is the change that I want? Keep that intention in your mind and keep repeating it. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Ignatius said that repeatedly. Step 4, let's talk about it. Okay, this is a little difficult thing because if I'm deciding now that I'm not going to eat dessert, okay, and I tell all the people in my family or my community that I'm not going to eat dessert because I want, you know that they're all going to be looking at you when dessert time comes. So talk about it to 1 or 2 people, a close friend or a spiritual director or something. Hey, this is the change. I'm saying it because I want to put it out. Okay, I want to put it out into the universe, as they say these days. I want to put it out. So let's tell some people. And whenever I'm giving this to families, I say, husband, wives, don't tell your wife and don't tell your husband because they'll be your biggest policeman in the house. But tell someone else that you're doing this. So when we talk about it, we are externalizing the intention that we are having, and it goes further into bringing about the behavior change that we want. And then be positive. So very important, when you're putting down the behavior change, always put it in the positive. Don't put it in the negative. If you say, I don't want to smoke, okay, then that's not helpful. But if you put it down, I want clean lungs, I want more energy, I want to be alive and well, okay, that's always putting the change in the positive, because the brain takes time to process the negative. If you say don't smoke, the first word the brain processes is smoke. And then that sort of remains in the mind. And then it processes don't. So always put it in a very positive framework, a sentence or a mantra or a motto. That behavior change, put it in the positive, and then you're likely to, that's why when we are imagining it in the night, imagining it in the morning, putting it everywhere, it's all in the positive. And then that change can help to come better. And then finally, of course, we could choose to do it by our own steam, by our own strength, or we could choose to appeal to a higher power, to a God above who is willing to help us in this journey to change. And it's so much easier when we do it with help from above, because then we also know what to choose. So this is important in behavior change. It's important to realize that I need to choose one thing at a time. Yes, there may be many things that I want to change in my life, but no, let me just choose one thing for this 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. At the end of this retreat, just choose one thing that you'd like to change. At this session, we are doing day 7. In the evening, when we come for Mass, we'll be doing day 8, because that will then send you out for the remaining days. But here what we are talking about is choose one thing at a time. Don't hope to change everything. You will not succeed in doing any of that. So the appeal to a higher power, bringing God in your life and say, how am I doing? Where am I going? What is it that, is there some course correction? Maybe now I've realized I'm eating too little and my weight is dropping too drastically, which is also not good for the health. Okay, it has to be a gradual change in whatever it is that you are doing. So the gradual change has to come about. So today, as we see, I've left a blank space in this. So maybe you can scribble what is it that, the many things that you think, and don't decide immediately. After some time, maybe there are 6 things you want to change. The Spirit will tell you, choose this. And then you can choose that, and then work on the mind map and work on the long-term goals, short-term goals. So this blank space is left for that. I will be available after the talk. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free. So as we normally do, let us end with this time of peace. We'll now listen to the same song that we heard, but this time in a very meditative and allowing the Spirit of God to speak to you through the quiet and peace. And maybe you might get inspiration to jot down a few points. Maybe feel free to do that. But otherwise, we are going to end with this and then end today's colloquy in silence.
No one can give to me that peace which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. No one can give to me the peace which which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. When I look around and see all the things that threaten me, and I seem to lose my peace in a world that's not at ease. No one can give to me that peace which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. Says my risen Christ to me, here's the peace I give to thee, not the peace the world doth give, but a peace that makes one free. No one can give to me the peace which my risen Lord, my risen King can give. No one can give to me that peace which my risen King can. No one can give